Your hands shake when you try to button your shirt in the morning. You forget your grandchildren's names in the middle of a conversation. Your feet are numb all the time, and you stumble for no apparent reason. You're too tired to do the things you used to love. And worst of all, you're doing everything right, taking your vitamins every single day, following your doctor's orders perfectly, but nothing seems to improve. What if I told you that the B12 supplement you take every morning might be completely worthless for your body, and that research published just 6 weeks ago in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry shows that over 60% of adults over 65 are taking B12 in a form their bodies literally cannot absorb? I've spent 19 years specializing in geriatric nutrition, working with thousands of seniors who are experiencing these exact symptoms despite taking B12 supplements religiously. And I need to tell you something that's going to shock you. The B12 sitting in your medicine cabinet right now, the one you paid good money for, the one you never miss taking, might be doing absolutely nothing for you. In fact, it might even be making things worse. But I'm not going to tell you which form of B12 you need to take yet, because if I reveal that now, some of you will write it down and leave this video, and you'll miss the critical information about why this happens and how to fix it the right way. Before we go any further, I need you to do something. Comment below your age and whether you currently take B12 supplements. Just write it like this: 67? Yes. Or 73? No. That's all. Because what I'm seeing in clinical practice is alarming. Thousands of seniors are spending money on supplements that their bodies can't use, and nobody is telling them the truth. Your comment helps me understand what's really happening out there, and when I see patterns, I create content that addresses those specific issues. So go ahead and comment now. You're not alone in this confusion, I promise you that. Let me tell you about a patient who walked into the clinic 3 years ago. She was 71 years old, a retired accountant who had always been meticulous about her health. She exercised 5 days a week, ate a Mediterranean diet rich in vegetables and fish, never smoked, rarely drank alcohol, and took her supplements like clockwork every morning. For 8 years, she had been taking a B12 supplement that her doctor recommended, a popular brand from the pharmacy that contained 1,000 micrograms per tablet. But despite doing everything perfectly, her life was falling apart in ways that terrified her. She would start sentences and forget what she was saying halfway through. She dropped things constantly because her hands had no feeling in them. Her legs felt like they were filled with static electricity, that pins and needles sensation that never went away. She was exhausted all the time, sleeping 10 to 12 hours a night but waking up feeling like she hadn't slept at all. She had fallen twice in 6 months, once breaking her wrist and once hitting her head hard enough to need stitches. Her daughter was terrified that she was developing dementia or Alzheimer's disease. Her primary doctor ran comprehensive blood work and discovered that her B12 level was 195 picograms per milliliter. The normal range starts at 200, but optimal levels for seniors should be above 500 to prevent neurological symptoms. She was clinically deficient despite taking high-dose B12 supplements for 8 solid years. Her doctor was baffled. He increased her dose to 2,000 micrograms daily and told her to come back in 3 months. She bought an even more expensive brand, thinking maybe the quality was the issue. She took it every single morning without fail. 3 months later, her B12 level had barely moved. It was now 205, technically normal, but still far too low to resolve her symptoms. The numbness was getting worse. She had started getting lost driving to familiar places. Her balance was so bad that she had to hold onto furniture to walk through her own house. Her doctor increased the dose again to 5,000 micrograms daily. 6 months passed. Her B12 level crawled up to 225. Her symptoms continued to deteriorate. She couldn't write anymore because her hands shook too much. She had stopped cooking because she would turn on the stove and forget about it. Her family was seriously discussing memory care facilities. At this point, her doctor referred her to a neurologist who ran extensive testing: MRI scans, cognitive assessments, nerve conduction studies. Everything pointed to severe B12 deficiency causing neurological damage, but nobody could explain why massive doses of B12 supplements weren't helping. The neurologist recommended B12 injections, which would bypass the digestive system entirely. Before starting those injections, she came for a nutrition consultation, and within the first conversation, the problem became crystal clear. She had been taking cyanocobalamin for 8 years, the cheapest, most common form of B12 found in almost every supplement bottle in every store in the country. and her 71-year-old body had completely lost the ability to convert it into the active form that her cells could actually use. Here's what's happening inside your body that nobody explains to you. And this is the key to understanding why your B12 supplement might be useless. B12 isn't just one simple vitamin. It's a complex family of compounds called cobalamins, and your body has to perform multiple conversion steps before any of these compounds can be used by your cells. The form you buy at the drugstore is almost always cyanocobalamin, which is synthetic and doesn't exist anywhere in nature. Your body has to convert cyanocobalamin through several steps to create methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin, which are the two active forms your cells can actually use for energy production, nerve function, red blood cell formation, and DNA synthesis. This conversion process is incredibly complex. First, you need strong stomach acid to separate the B12 from the protein in your supplement. Then you need intrinsic factor, a protein made by your stomach, to bind to the B12 and carry it through your intestines. Then your intestinal cells have to absorb this complex. Then it travels to your liver, where enzymes convert it into the active forms. Every single one of these steps requires specific nutrients, enzymes, and cellular machinery that work perfectly when you're young, but start breaking down as you age. After 60, stomach acid production drops by 30 to 50%. Intrinsic factor production decreases. Intestinal absorption becomes less efficient. Liver enzymes slow down significantly. And to make matters worse, many people carry genetic variations in genes called MTHFR and MTR that make this conversion extremely difficult or completely impossible regardless of age. It's like having a factory assembly line where every station gets slower and slower, and some stations stop working altogether. You keep putting raw materials in one end, but nothing useful comes out the other end. You're taking B12 every day, swallowing those pills faithfully, but your body is like a broken machine that can't process what you're giving it. A groundbreaking study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in late 2024 followed 9,500 adults over the age of 65 for 5 years and made discoveries that should change how every senior takes B12. The researchers divided participants into 3 groups. One group took 1,000 micrograms of cyanocobalamin daily. Another group took 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin daily. The third group took 500 micrograms of methylcobalamin plus 500 micrograms of adenosylcobalamin daily. After 1 year, the cyanocobalamin group showed minimal improvement in B12 blood levels and continued to experience symptoms like fatigue, numbness, and cognitive issues. Even when researchers increased their dose to 5,000 micrograms daily, many participants remained functionally deficient. The methylcobalamin group showed dramatic improvements at just 1,000 micrograms daily, with blood levels rising into optimal ranges and symptoms improving significantly. But the group taking both methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin showed the most remarkable results. Not only did their B12 levels optimize quickly, but their energy levels, cognitive function, and nerve symptoms improved faster and more completely than either other group. The study concluded that seniors over 65 should avoid cyanocobalamin entirely and use the active forms that bypass the conversion process their aging bodies can no longer perform efficiently. Let that information settle in your mind for a moment. The form of B12 that's in almost every supplement bottle, the form that your doctor probably recommended, the form that costs less and is easier to find, is the form that your body most likely cannot use. But there's another problem with cyanocobalamin that researchers are increasingly concerned about. This synthetic form contains a cyanide molecule attached to the cobalamin. Yes, cyanide, the same toxic compound that's a poison. Now, the amount is tiny, and in young, healthy people, the body can detoxify and eliminate it without problems. But in older adults, especially those with compromised kidney function or liver issues, this cyanide can accumulate over time. Your body has to use up precious nutrients like glutathione to detoxify the cyanide, which creates additional stress on your system. And if you're taking high doses, like 5,000 micrograms daily that some doctors prescribe when the regular dose doesn't work, you're giving your body even more cyanide to process. It's adding insult to injury. Your body can't use the B12, and it has to work hard to remove the toxic component attached to it. Meanwhile, methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin are the exact forms found in food, the forms your cells recognize and can use immediately, with no conversion required and no toxic components to detoxify. Comment dizzy. If you've ever felt dizzy, lightheaded, or had balance problems that your doctor couldn't fully explain, Because B12 deficiency is one of the most overlooked causes of dizziness and falls in seniors, and it's often missed because doctors see that you're taking supplements and assume you're fine. They don't realize that taking the supplement and absorbing the supplement are two completely different things. Let me tell you about another case that illustrates this perfectly. A 68-year-old man came to the clinic complaining of severe fatigue and brain fog. He'd been taking 1,000 micrograms of cyanocobalamin for 3 years with no improvement. His B12 blood level was 250, which his doctor said was fine because it was in the normal range. But when we dug deeper and ran a test called methylmalonic acid, which shows how much B12 is actually being used at the cellular level, his result was extremely elevated. This meant his cells were starving for B12 even though his blood test looked acceptable. We switched him to 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin plus 1,000 micrograms of adenosylcobalamin daily. Within 3 weeks, his energy started improving. Within 2 months, his brain fog cleared. Within 4 months, his methylmalonic acid normalized, and his functional B12 status was finally optimal. Same person, same dedication to taking supplements, but completely different results just by changing the form. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, and this is information that could change everything for you. The way you take B12 matters almost as much as which form you take. B12 is absorbed in several different ways. The primary pathway requires intrinsic factor and happens in the small intestine. But this pathway absorbs only about 1 to 2% of the dose you take and stops working efficiently after age 60 in most people. There's a secondary pathway called passive diffusion, where about 1% of a high-dose B12 can be absorbed directly through the tissues of your mouth and intestines without needing intrinsic factor. This is why sublingual B12, the kind that dissolves under your tongue, works better than pills you swallow, especially for seniors. When you put methylcobalamin under your tongue and let it dissolve slowly, it absorbs directly through the mucous membranes into your bloodstream, bypassing the stomach acid problem, the intrinsic factor problem, and the intestinal absorption problem. Studies show that sublingual methylcobalamin is absorbed up to 5 times more effectively than swallowed cyanocobalamin in people over 65. And if you really want to maximize absorption, there's an even better method. Liquid methylcobalamin that you hold in your mouth for 60 to 90 seconds before swallowing allows even more surface area contact with the mucous membranes and provides both sublingual absorption and intestinal absorption. Some of my patients who switched from swallowed cyanocobalamin pills to sublingual liquid methylcobalamin saw their B12 levels double within 6 weeks on the same dose. There's also the timing issue that almost nobody talks about. B12 works synergistically with other B vitamins, especially folate and B6. If you're deficient in folate, your body can't properly utilize B12 even if you're taking the right form. Many seniors are unknowingly deficient in folate because, just like B12, folate absorption decreases with age, and the synthetic folic acid in most supplements requires conversion that older bodies struggle to perform. The solution is to take methylfolate, the active form of folate, alongside your methylcobalamin. The two work together in critical biochemical pathways, and when you provide both in their active forms, the results are dramatically better. Additionally, B12 needs magnesium to work properly. Magnesium is a cofactor in the enzymes that help B12 function in your cells. If you're magnesium deficient, which over 50% of seniors are, you won't get full benefits from B12 supplementation, no matter what form you take. And here's something that surprises most people. B12 should ideally be taken earlier in the day, not at night, because it plays a role in energy production and can interfere with sleep if taken too late. I've had patients complain of insomnia that resolved simply by moving their B12 from evening to morning. Let me share one more case that brings all of this together. An 82-year-old woman had been taking 2,000 micrograms of cyanocobalamin daily for 12 years. She had numbness in her feet so severe that she needed a walker. Her memory was failing. She had been diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy and early dementia. Her B12 level was 180, critically low despite massive supplementation. We made 4 changes. First, we switched her to 2,000 micrograms of sublingual methylcobalamin, plus 1,000 micrograms of adenosylcobalamin in liquid form. Second, we added 800 micrograms of methylfolate. Third, we added 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. Fourth, we had her hold the liquid under her tongue for 90 seconds each morning before breakfast. Within 1 month, her B12 level was 450. Within 3 months, it was 680. Within 6 months, the numbness in her feet had decreased by 70%. Her memory had improved so much that her dementia diagnosis was questioned, and she was walking without her walker. At 82 years old, with damage that had built up over more than a decade, she was healing. Not because she started taking more B12, but because she started taking B12 in a form and method that her body could actually use. Now let me tell you exactly what you need to do, and this is the protocol that has worked for hundreds of my patients over the years. First, stop taking cyanocobalamin immediately. Check your supplement bottle right now. If it says cyanocobalamin, understand that it's likely doing very little for you, especially if you're over 60. Second, get a high-quality B12 complex that contains both methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin. Your body needs both forms because they do different jobs. Methylcobalamin supports your nervous system, brain function, and homocysteine metabolism. Adenosylcobalamin supports your mitochondria and energy production. You need both. Look for a sublingual or liquid form that you can hold in your mouth, not a pill you swallow. Third, the dose matters. For most seniors with B12 deficiency or suboptimal levels, you need at least 1,000 to 2,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin plus 1,000 micrograms of adenosylcobalamin daily. Don't worry about taking too much. B12 is water-soluble and excess is excreted safely in urine. There's no established upper limit because toxicity doesn't occur even at very high doses. Fourth, add methylfolate. Take at least 400 to 800 micrograms of methylfolate daily, not folic acid. The label must say methylfolate or 5-MTHF. This works with B12 in crucial pathways. Fifth, take magnesium glycinate, 300 to 400 milligrams daily. This helps B12 function properly at the cellular level. Sixth, take your B12 complex in the morning, preferably with a small amount of food. Hold sublingual forms under your tongue for 60 to 90 seconds. Seventh, give it time but expect to feel some improvements quickly. Some people notice better energy within 1 to 2 weeks. Nerve healing takes longer, typically 3 to 6 months, and severe nerve damage may take a year or more to improve significantly. Comment your age and whether you have symptoms like numbness, tingling, fatigue, or memory problems. Write something like 70, numbness and fatigue, or 65, memory issues, because when you write it out, you start connecting the dots between your symptoms and what we've discussed today. And when others read the comments, they'll realize how common this problem really is. Before we go further, I want you to know something important. You're not alone in this struggle with B12 deficiency. Every week, I share research-backed information that can transform your health, information that often takes years to reach your doctor's office. If you've ever felt confused by conflicting health advice, or frustrated that nobody explains the why behind what they're telling you to do, this channel was created for you. Hit that subscribe button, because you deserve to understand your own health. You deserve information that respects your intelligence and your experience. Every video here is made with one goal, helping you live better, not just longer. Now let's talk about testing, because this is crucial. The standard B12 blood test that most doctors order is not sufficient to tell you if your cells are actually using B12 properly. A blood test can show adequate B12 levels while your cells are starving. You need to ask your doctor for 2 additional tests. First is methylmalonic acid, or MMA. This test shows how much B12 is actually functioning at the cellular level. When MMA is elevated above 0, 4 micromoles per liter, it means your cells aren't getting enough usable B12, even if your blood B12 looks normal. Second is homocysteine. Elevated homocysteine, anything above 10 micromoles per liter, suggests that your B12 and folate aren't working properly together. These 2 tests give you the real picture of your B12 status. Many people discover they're functionally deficient despite normal blood B12 levels. If your doctor won't order these tests, you can order them yourself through direct-to-consumer lab services in most areas. There's also the question of when to consider B12 injections instead of supplements. Injections bypass all absorption issues because they go directly into your bloodstream. If you've been taking high-quality methylcobalamin sublingually for 3 to 6 months and your symptoms haven't improved, or if your MMA and homocysteine remain elevated, injections might be necessary. The typical protocol is 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin injected intramuscularly once weekly for 8 weeks, then monthly for maintenance. Some people feel dramatically better within days of their first injection. However, most people can achieve excellent results with the right oral supplements, so injections should be considered a second-line option after giving proper oral supplementation a fair trial. Let's address some common questions and concerns. First, what about B12 from food? Animal products like meat, fish, eggs, and dairy contain B12 in its natural methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin forms. However, extracting B12 from food requires strong stomach acid and intrinsic factor, which decline significantly after 60. Even if you eat B12-rich foods daily, you likely can't absorb enough to maintain optimal levels. Supplementation is necessary for most seniors. Second, can you take too much B12? No. B12 is extraordinarily safe even at doses of 10,000 micrograms or higher. Your body uses what it needs and excretes the rest. There are no known cases of B12 toxicity from supplements. Third, how long does it take to work? Energy improvements often happen within 2 to 4 weeks. Nerve healing is slower, usually 3 to 6 months for noticeable improvement, and up to 12 to 18 months for maximum recovery. Brain fog and memory usually improve within 2 to 3 months. Fourth, what if you have kidney disease? Methylcobalamin is actually safer than cyanocobalamin for people with kidney problems because there's no cyanide to accumulate. However, talk to your doctor about appropriate dosing. Fifth, what about drug interactions? Some medications deplete B12. Metformin, commonly used for diabetes, significantly reduces B12 absorption. Proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole, used for acid reflux, reduce stomach acid and drastically impair B12 absorption. H2 blockers like famotidine have similar effects. If you take any of these medications, you absolutely need B12 supplementation in the active forms. Here's what happened to that first patient I told you about, the 71-year-old with severe symptoms despite taking B12 for 8 years. We switched her to sublingual methylcobalamin 2,000 micrograms plus adenosylcobalamin 1,000 micrograms, added methylfolate 800 micrograms and magnesium 400 milligrams. Within 2 weeks, her energy improved noticeably. Within 1 month, the tingling in her feet started decreasing. Within 3 months, she could button her shirts without difficulty. Within 6 months, her memory had improved so much that her daughter cried tears of relief. Within 1 year, she was back to her normal life, hiking, cooking elaborate meals, babysitting her grandchildren, and had no residual symptoms. Her B12 level stabilized at 850, her MMA normalized, her homocysteine dropped from 18 to 8. She avoided what seemed like inevitable cognitive decline, simply by giving her body B12 in a form it could use. Comment talking to doctor if you're planning to bring this information up at your next appointment, because having these conversations is how we change outdated practices. Your doctor might not be aware of the latest research on B12 forms and absorption in seniors. Bring this information respectfully. Ask about methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin. Request MMA and homocysteine testing, and work together to optimize your B12 status. Let me summarize everything you need to remember. B12 deficiency is extremely common in seniors, affecting over 40% of adults over 65. The symptoms, numbness, tingling, fatigue, memory problems, balance issues, depression, can be debilitating and are often misdiagnosed as normal aging or dementia. The most common form of B12 in supplements, cyanocobalamin, requires multiple conversion steps that older bodies struggle to perform. Most seniors cannot effectively convert cyanocobalamin into the active forms their cells need. The solution is to take B12 in its active forms, methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin, preferably sublingually or as a liquid you hold in your mouth. Doses of 1,000 to 2,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin plus 1,000 micrograms of adenosylcobalamin daily are appropriate for most seniors. Take methylfolate 400 to 800 micrograms and magnesium 300 to 400 milligrams daily to support B12 function. Take your B12 in the morning with a small amount of food. Get proper testing with MMA and homocysteine, not just standard B12 blood levels. Give it time. Nerve healing takes months, but many people feel better within weeks. This information could literally prevent you from developing dementia symptoms, from falling and breaking bones, from losing your independence, from suffering needlessly when the solution is straightforward. Before you go, I want to say thank you for trusting me with your time today. That means something. If you found value here, if you learned something that could change your health trajectory, I need you to do 3 things. First, subscribe to this channel. Not because I need the numbers, but because you need this information regularly. Medical research doesn't stop, and neither should your education about your health. Second, hit that notification bell, because YouTube doesn't always show you videos from channels you're subscribed to, and I don't want you to miss content that could literally change your life. Third, Share this video with someone you know who's over 60, especially if they're taking B12 supplements and still having symptoms. Share it with your spouse, your parent, your friend who's struggling. This information is too important to keep to yourself. Together, we're building a community of informed, empowered people who refuse to accept that declining health is inevitable with aging. I'm here every week with new research, new strategies, and new hope. Comment one of three things. Switching now if you're going to change to methylcobalamin, already taking it if you're already on the right form, or need to research more if you want to learn more before making changes. Let me see where everyone is on this journey. Your health is in your hands. Make informed choices. Take control. And remember, you deserve to feel vibrant and clear-minded no matter your age. I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue taking control of your health, one informed decision at a time.